cool and very normal. Cancelled. IG तो सवाल नहीं. IG right ना. IG हम लोग बहुत दूर दूर एकदम. How many IGs here? अरे वाह. So IG हो गए. Great. Now this example is set in England, where they were doing a count of a very special kind of a butterfly before the industrialization era, before industrialization set in, right? Now the species that they were looking at, the genera was called as Biston. Now Biston के दो variants थे, एक light color का variant था, एक dark color का variant था. जो light color का variant था, it was called as Biston betularia, and the dark variety was called as Biston carbonaria. Right? Obviously the name is very suggestive. Carbon है तो dark होगा, black होगा. Right? So दो varieties थे, एक light color का variety था, एक dark color का variety था. इसका population count ले रहे थे. ये कब ले रहे थे? Before the industrialization का period. Right? When pollution का level was low. So they found that the darker variety का population is less and the lighter color का population is high. So they find out the reason why. Because these were found sitting on a particular plant, a tree, and the tree was covered with lichen. Lichen was almost white or greyish white colored. Do we know lichen और pollution का relationship? Greyish मालूम है ना? Right? हाँ, वो lichen कभी भी polluted area में नहीं मिलेगा, and it is sensitive to pollution, especially sulfur dioxide. Right? अगर sulfur dioxide या pollution high हो गया, मतलब lichen is going to fall off and die. Right? So non-polluted era था तभी, tree was covered with lichen, lichen was almost white colored. तो उस white color पे वो जो light variant था, उसको camouflage मिल रहा था, और जो dark वाला था वो conspicuous हो गया. The darker variety became conspicuous. So it was picked up by the predatory birds. So the bird could only see the dark variety, और light variety को camouflage की वजह से protection मिल रहा था. So इसलिए किसका population ज़्यादा हो गया? White वाले का, the lighter variety, और dark वाले का population कम हो गया. Right? This was in 1850s, before industrialization. But after industrialization, when the level of pollution went high, lichen fell off, the carbon, the soot started covering the tree, so tree का bark became dark. So अब किसको camouflage मिला? Darker वाले को. Now who was becoming conspicuous? The lighter variant. So the population reversed now. Light वाला population became less, the dark वाला population became more. Right? So this was the example. This example is called as industrial melanism. Industrial, this example came to be known as industrial melanism because of the color of the moths or butterflies involved. Let's see what the NCERT says about this. Another interesting observation, supporting evolution by natural selection. So this was by means of natural selection. Comes from England. In a collection of moths made in 1850s, that is before industrialization set in, it was observed that there were more white-winged moths on trees than the dark-winged or melanized. However, in the collection carried out from the same area, but after industrialization, 1920s, more dark-winged in the same area, that is the proportion was reversed as we saw in the example. The explanation put forth for this observation was that predators will spot a moth against a contrasting background in both the cases. During post-industrialization, the tree trunks became dark due to industrial smoke and soot. Under this condition, the white-winged moth did not survive due to predators. The dark-winged or the melanized moth survived. Before industrialization, thick growth of almost white-colored lichen covered the trees. Namya, what is lichen?
Your normal fungi plus algae plus fungi.
Okay. Classify lichen.
Doesn't fall enough.
Classify. I have given you classification of lichen. What is the algal partner called? What is the fungal partner called?
The beyond, right? So, your algal is the
What you said?
beyond. The mycobiyond, psychobiyond.
Sorry, I didn't hear it properly. Mark, come on. Excuse me for that.
So your algal is the mycobiyond and your fungi is the phycobiyond.
Phycobiyond, right now? And I told you that the fungus can be anything but phycomycetes. So it could be a deuterolichen, it could be a basidiolichen, or it could be a astrolichen. Okay? In that background, the white-winged moth survived, but the dark-colored moth were picked out by predators. Right? Do you know that lichen can be used as industrial pollution? We know that. Oh, answer question पूछा तुमने answer क्या? You know, हमको मालूम है. Right? Do you know what is the second ecological use of lichen? One is pollution indicator. Second वाला? Quiet. Okay. ये सबको बीच में आना. मुझे सर ऐसा सडनली आउट ऑफ द वे क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछने का. हाँ तो अभी दिया ना, बोलो ना क्या है अभी, बोलो ना. राइट साइड का पेज, राइट सर, राइट साइड के पेज में ऊपर लिखा हुआ है सर एकदम. Primary succession, mosses and lichens are pioneer species. Yes, it is. Okay. This understanding is supported by the fact that in areas where industrialization did not occur, देखो clarification दे रहे हो कि ये change अपने को किधर दिखा, जहां industrialization का effect दिखा, यानी city area में. लेकिन रूरल एरियाज में जहां इंडस्ट्रीज नहीं थे, जहां उसका इफेक्ट नहीं था, पहले जैसा ही प्रपोर्शन था. मतलब दिस वाज बेसिकली ड्यू टू द फैक्ट दैट इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन हैड अकर्ड एंड दैट हैज कॉज्ड द पॉपुलेशन टू बी रिवर्स्ड. This showed that a mixed population, those that can better adapt, survive and increase in population size. Right? Now, the next paragraph is also a very interesting one. Again, the same type of a question is posed by the author. He says excessive use of herbicides, pesticides, right? When you use them excessively. Or a more understandable example would be excessive rampant use of antibiotics. Right? When you use antibiotics, something like for example, right now, you know antibiotics are generation wise. Generation 1, generation 2, 3, 4, right? So, जैसे जैसे बढ़ता गया वैसे वैसे the strength of the antibiotic went on increasing. Why do we need to move from generation 1 to generation 2? Because generation 1 इतना ज़्यादा use किया कि bacteria उसकी आदत पड़ गई. They became resistant. Right? Have you heard of the disease called Koch's? K-O-C-H-S, Koch's? No, tuberculosis. It was discovered by Robert Koch, so it is called as Koch's. Okay. So this tuberculosis was once upon a time a very rampant disease in our country. मतलब massive killer. It was a national crisis. ऐसे लोग मरते थे कॉक्स से. बट लेकिन ऐसा ऐसा एंटीबायोटिक्स या एंटी ट्यूबरकुलर ड्रग्स आने से पूरा कंट्रोल में आ गया. And it became a normal disease then. But of late we find new resistant varieties of tuberculosis have come. पहले अपना नॉर्मल था, फिर आया ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट ट्यूबरकुलोसिस, फिर हाई ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट ट्यूबरकुलोसिस. नाउ वी हैव XDR, एक्सट्रीम ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट ट्यूबरकुलोसिस. So what has been happening now? The bacteria have slowly started getting more and more resistant. So if it is resistant, that means it is a newer variant of the bacteria. That means a new species. It's a new species. Same applies for excessive use of pesticides and क्या लिखा है तुम्हारा, herbicides. Similarly, excessive use of herbicides and pesticides has only resulted in selection of resistant varieties in a much lesser time scale. Again देखो टाइम वाला फैक्टर आ गया जो पहले क्वेश्चन में था कि man has bred so many different varieties in a short span of time. So why nature has done it in millions of years? This is also true for microbes against which we employ antibiotics or drugs against eukaryotic. Resistant organisms are appearing in a time scale of months or years and not centuries. These are examples of evolution by anthropogenic action. What is anthropogenic? Man-made. Right? So excessive use of all these substances mentioned are nothing but man-made activities. This also tells us that evolution is not a directed process in the sense of determinism. बाप रे, सब भारी भरकम सेंटेंस यूज करते यार, डर जाती है यार, लेकिन होता एकदम सिंपल है, राइट? यानी एवोल्यूशन कोई डिफाइंड प्रोसेस नहीं है, मतलब नेचर के ऊपर छोड़ दिया तो सेंचुरी के सेंचुरी लग जाएंगे, और ये प्रोसेस से थोड़े टाइम में एवोल्यूशन भी हो सकता है, आर्टिफिशियल प्रोसेस से. सो इट इज नॉट अ डायरेक्टेड प्रोसेस, इट इज नॉट डिटरमाइंड कि ऐसे ही होगा. इट इज अ स्टोकेस्टिक प्रोसेस, रैंडम प्रोसेस. इट्स अ स्टोकेस्टिक रैंडम प्रोसेस based on chance events in nature and chance mutation in organism. Was the butterfly वाला example a chance event? क्योंकि इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन हुआ इसलिए वो हुआ, इसलिए पॉपुलेशन रिवर्स हुआ उसका, और वो भी उसी एरिया में हुआ जहां पर इंडस्ट्रियल का इफेक्ट था, बाकी एरियाज में नहीं हुआ. सो चांस इवेंट्स इन नेचर एंड चांस म्यूटेशन इन द ऑर्गेनिज्म, राइट? मतलब ये एक प्री डिटरमाइंड प्रोसेस फॉलो नहीं करता है, right? It can be random and occurring anytime, anywhere, right? So that is what is. So this entire 7.3 was giving evidences and glimpses of evolution, and at the right point posing certain questions which cause us to think whether, जैसे, see, that's why all these are theories of evolution. They are not proved under conditions of time and space, right? That's why the author is trying to pose questions. ऐसे भी तो हो सकता है. So पूरा 7.3 is talking about only one topic, that is evidences of evolution. First evidence that he spoke about was paleontological, fossil based. Second was embryological. Third was comparative anatomy. उसमें दो पार्ट किए हमने, homologous and analogous, right? Biochemical, genes and protein. And fifth वाला example, butterfly वाला example, natural selection. तो ये 5 points हो गए अपने, ठीक है. इनफैक्ट कंपैरेटिव एनाटॉमी में हम लोग और एक ऑर्गन्स का बात कर सकते थे, बट लेकिन चूंकि मेंशन नहीं है, वी हैव नॉट टॉक्ड अबाउट दिस. वेस्टिजियल ऑर्गन्स, वेस्टिजियल ऑर्गन्स आल्सो वी कुड हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट, वी वर देयर अर्लियर बट नॉट प्रेजेंट नाउ, ठीक है ना. बट सिंस द एनसीईआरटी इज नॉट मेंशनिंग, वी विल कीप इट साइड में, नो प्रॉब्लम. गोइंग टू 7.4, द लास्ट टॉपिक ऑफ द डे फॉर अस, adaptive radiation. Now what is adaptive radiation? Now this again talks about the Darwin's visit to that island. Island का नाम क्या था? Galapagos, right? Now what was the observation of Darwin on that island of Galapagos? Now on the Galapagos island, on this island of Galapagos, see, Galapagos was almost 900 miles of mainland. Mainland से 900 miles, काफी दूर था. Now his ऑब्जर्वेशन वाज फॉर अ वैरायटी ऑफ ऑर्गेनिजम्स, बट उसका जो स्पेशल इंटरेस्ट था ना, इट वाज अ स्मॉल बर्ड बाय द नेम ऑफ फिंच. दिस बर्ड वाज कॉल्ड एज फिंच, राइट? So much so that in history now it is known as Darwin finches. Darwin का नाम अटैच हो गया उससे. Today also when you describe finch, Darwin's finches, अच्छा Darwin's finches. Okay. So finch was there on mainland. The finch was seen on the island also. But to his surprise, in different parts of the island, he found that the finches were differing in characteristics. Yani the finch found in different parts were differing in their structure of beak. Right? उसके स्टडी के हिसाब से जो ओरिजिनल फिंच था, जो मेनलैंड से यहाँ पे आया हुआ था, वो एक वेजिटेरियन था. लेकिन in some parts of the geographical areas of the island there were insects, so the beak gradually modified to pick up insects. There was alteration in the beak. कुछ areas island के अंदर fruits का availability ज़्यादा था, तो beak got modified to eat the fruit. So different areas में एक ही आइलैंड पे अलग अलग जोग्राफिकल एरियाज में चूंकि कंडीशंस अलग अलग थे, तो उसके बीक का ऑल्टरेशन हुआ. सो द डिफरेंस ऑफ द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द बीक वाज द डिफरेंट इन डिफरेंट स्पीशीज ऑफ फिंचेस. सी दिस वाज हिज क्वेश्चन नो ओरिजिनल, कि एक ही जगह में इतने सारे अलग अलग स्पीशीज कैसे मिलेंगे. तो उसका ये कंजेक्चर, उसका ये मानना था कि ऑल दीज स्पीशीज हैव डेवलप्ड ऑन दिस आइलैंड इटसेल्फ because of these causes. The book which he wrote was titled Origin of Species. It was not natural selection. The method that he advocated was natural selection. Natural selection से नए species आए हुए. उसके book का title था Origin of Species. Okay, so this was, so he thought that एक central character है और उससे बाकी सब कैरेक्टर्स मिलते हैं. So he called this kind of an process as adaptive radiation. This process was termed as adaptive radiation. Now from the diagram of adaptive radiation by itself, can you see it is divergent in nature? यानी एक सेंट्रल कैरेक्टर है, उससे सारे निकल रहे हैं, radiating in different directions. So adaptive radiation by itself is what, divergent or convergent? Divergent, right? देखो adaptive में क्या लिखा हुआ है. During his journey, Darwin went to Galapagos. There he observed an amazing diversity of creatures of particular interest. Small black birds, later called Darwin's finches. Amazing. So the bird का नाम was finch. Okay. He realized that there were many varieties of finches in the same island. All the varieties, he conjectured, ये उसका conjecture था. All the varieties evolved on the island itself from the original seed-eating features. Original क्या था? Seed-eating. Right? Many other forms with altered beaks arose, enabling them to become insectivorous and vegetarian finches. The process of evolution, this is the definition now, of different species. Do we have different species here? The process of evolution of different species in a given geographical area. यहाँ पे Galapagos. In a given geographical area, starting from a point. Has this started from the mainland now यहाँ पर? Right? Starting from a point and literally radiating to other areas of geography. Radiating to other areas of the geography is called as adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation, right now? So इसको adaptive radiation बोलते हैं. Now let's go to a different area now. Different area, Australia. Right? The only continent which is also an island. Very unique. Okay. Now considering the expanse of Australia. Australia is famous for its marsupial. Kangaroo, right? No? Marsupial. So the marsupials have evolved from a single point. मतलब उनका भी adaptive radiation हुआ है यहाँ पर. Please ये example को ध्यान से सुनना please. We are going to come to a conclusion here. और ये हमारे लेक्चर का last point है आज का. So एक adaptive radiation हुआ marsupials का. उसमें one of the creatures formed was a kangaroo. Okay, and there were other creatures also. So is this an adaptive radiation? Is this satisfying the definition of adaptive radiation? Right, starting from a point, radiating to different areas of geography in a particular geographical area. Right, सारे जो criteria दिए हुए definition में सबके सब केस में fit हो रहा है. Right? So this was one adaptive radiation. But in the same area of Australia, we had another adaptive radiation of placental mammals. Go to the next page. On the next page, you will find two columns. One column for Australian marsupials and the other column is for placental mammals. मिला दोनों column मिला अलग अलग. Where's your NCERT beta? Where's yours? Bad. So why have you taken hers? She can't make notes now. Begging. Too large-hearted, please. Really too large-hearted. Okay. So one adaptive radiation was for marsupials, one was for placental mammals. So placental mammals का भी adaptive radiation हुआ. Right? Now let us see the list of organisms in both of them. Right? So look at placental mammals: mole, anteater, mouse, lemur, flying squirrel, a bobcat and a wolf. And an Australian marsupial में marsupial mole, numbat, marsupial mouse. Now what we are noticing is, like for example, in a placental mammal we've got a mole. But in an Australian marsupial we have got a marsupial mole. Last वाला देखो, wolf and a Tasmanian wolf. यहाँ पर we have a wolf, यहाँ पर we have a Tasmanian wolf. So up we have two adaptive radiations. Are these two adaptive radiations occurring in the same geographical area? Are these both occurring in the same geographical area? But in both of them we are finding structures converging. Structures converging. तो एक adaptive radiation अगर है तो in itself वो divergent है. अगर मैं सिर्फ एक कंसिडर करता हूं तो in itself ये divergent है. लेकिन जब मैं दो कंसिडर करता हूं तो वो convergent है. When I am considering two adaptive radiations occurring in a same geographical area, वो evolution convergent हो जाता है. ये बहुत slippery point है, please. एक सिंगल अडैप्टिव रेडिएशन अपने आप में इट इज डाइवर्जेंट इन नेचर बिकॉज इट स्टार्ट फ्रॉम अ पॉइंट रेडिएट्स इन डिफरेंट डायरेक्शंस. इजी, अंडरस्टैंडेबल. बट व्हेन आई हैव टू अडैप्टिव रेडिएशंस इन अ सिंगल एरिया मुझे पैरेलल ऑर्गेनिजम्स मिलते हैं, सिमिलर ऑर्गेनिजम्स मिलते हैं. राइट? वही लिस्ट है जो सेकंड पेज पे लिस्ट है तुम्हारा, ये वाला. सो एक माउस है, एक मार्सुपियल माउस है, एक लेम्यूर है, एक स्पॉटेड कस्कस है, flying squirrel है, flying phalanger है. Right? You have a bobcat, you have a Tasmanian tiger cat, you have a wolf and a Tasmanian wolf. So this is the convergence which we have pointed out. Let us just read the entire thing, please. Darwin's finches represent one of the best example of this phenomena. Another example is Australian marsupials. A number of marsupials, each different from the other, evolved from an ancestral stock, but all within the Australian island continent, when more than one adaptive radiation appeared to have occurred in an isolated geographical area representing different habitats, one can call this convergent evolution. Please. Are you taking up the difference between a single adaptive radiation and if two happen in one area? One divergent है, दूसरा convergent हो जाएगा. Placental mammals in Australia also exhibit adaptive radiation. Right? So tell me in this part, how many examples of adaptive radiation have been given? 3. Finches, marsupials and placental mammals. Right? So which of the following exhibits adaptive radiation? Darwin's finches, Australian marsupials, placental mammals. All 3 are exhibiting adaptive radiation. Clear, please? See, placental mammals in Australia also exhibit adaptive radiation in evolving into varieties of such placental mammals, each of which appear to be similar to a corresponding marsupial. So do we find a mole similar to a marsupial mole? A flying squirrel corresponding similar to a flying phalanger? A wolf correspondingly similar to a Tasmanian wolf? तो यहाँ पे वो converge हो जाते हैं. जब आप 2 अडैप्टिव रेडिएशन को कंपेयर करेंगे तो वो कन्वर्ज हो जाते हैं. सिंगल अडैप्टिव रेडिएशन कंसीडर करेंगे तो वो खुद अपने आप में इट इज डाइवर्जेंट. सो व्हेन यू टॉक ऑफ 1 अडैप्टिव रेडिएशन इट इज डाइवर्जेंट एवोल्यूशन. व्हेन यू टॉक 2 व्हाट इन द सेम एरिया देन इट इज कन्वर्जेंट. प्लीज सो वी हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट डाइवर्जेंट एंड कन्वर्जेंट टुडे. होमोलॉगस डाइवर्जेंट, एनालॉगस कन्वर्जेंट. Adaptive radiation single, divergent. 2 adaptive radiation in the same area, convergent. I hope this point is very clear. Pakka? Right? So this 7.3 and 7.4 is what we have concluded today. ठीक है? So we have done with 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 and 7.4. Right? ये चारों topics will be there for DCT next time. 7.6 क्या किया हम लोगों ने उसमें से न्यूपोर्ट एवरेज थियरी किया है. इनफैक्ट 7.5 में से लेमार्क भी हो गया अपना. सो ऑल whatever we have finished now, whatever we have done now, so please will be there for the DCT next time. ठीक है? See, please, we are going to the central part of the chapter. As you have seen in the last 2 lectures, right now this chapter is very conceptual. The ideas behind the chapter have to be understood, then the matter has to be memorized. बिना समझ के इस मैटर को मेमोराइज करना इम्पॉसिबल है, नहीं कर पाएंगे हम लोग. राइट? अभी इसके बाद वी आर गोइंग टू हैव हार्डी-वेलबेक प्रिंसिपल आल्सो, मतलब उसके न्यूमेरिकल्स भी आएंगे अपने को. The lot to be done in the next lecture also. Right? चलो, thank you all, thank you so much everybody. Have a nice day. Yes, please.